Heakoya Yuichiro was an ugly loser orphan child who had lost his whole family in a pandemic, and got his friends eaten by vampires. While growing up, he found his way into the Japanese army and became a vampire hunter to avenge his kind. However, things take a weird turn as a demon possessor becomes his girlfriend, and he finds out that his long-lost best friend has also turned into a vampire. The story begins as a cursed city begins to fall with a plane crashing into buildings, and people randomly puking blood on the streets. Then the radio is heard where a lady announces that a deadly virus is spreading due to the foolishness of humans, and would inevitably bring doom to the human race. Shows should be realistic, but this is just too much. The announcement also says that the virus wouldn't affect children of age 13 and under, and that they will now be taken under the care of a protective unit. Just after this, a group of creeps who look like kidnappers run after a specific group of children that is traumatized after seeing everyone die around them. They are put into a van, and then the story fast forwards to a point 4 years in the future. A place that is seemingly an orphanage has the same children from the van, and many others. They all wear the same uniform, and are being inspected like lab rats. In a separate room inside the orphanage, there is a lab where the children's blood is being collected through injections, which isn't helping the already grim atmosphere. Two boys among these kids named Heakoya Yuichiro and Heakoya Mikela are seen talking about their not-so-fancy lives in this lab. Yu throws a can of juice saying that it tastes worse than Mountain Dew. Mika seems rather content with the place as he thinks being alive is a privilege in the times. Just then, two of the creepy lab guards step over an innocent girl's hands as they walk past her. Seeing this awakens Yu's Super Saiyan rage, and he straight up confronts them. But the poor kid is no match for the guard who lifts him up in the air with one hand. Bro is literally about to punch the life out of Yu, but he gets lucky when the scene is interrupted by the arrival of a noble, and the guard lets Yu go. The noble looks like a leader controlling the whole place, and surprisingly Mika goes and warmly greets him. After that, the noble named Lord Farid leaves, and Mika starts to walk with Yu. Then Mika explains that these nobles and their guards are actual vampires. It's impossible to overpower them. After hearing this, Yu gives his friend a little punch of disgust, and leaves. Yu goes and lies down on a terrace where another one of his friends, Akane, joins him. Akane instantly realizes that her friend is in a bad mood. She insists him to open up to her, because she believes that all kids from the Heakoya orphanage are family. Hearing this, Yu's mind goes into flashback as he remembers his first day at the orphanage 4 years ago after he was caught by the protective unit. Mika was the first kid to call him his friend, even though the troubled Yu acted very rough. It is revealed by Yu in the flashback that he had daddy issues, and a mother who cursed him, which is why he has always been feistier than other kids. Yu then returns to the present where Akane tells him to join the kids for dinner before leaving. After some time, Yu goes back to the orphanage room where he is greeted by younger kids who are like siblings to him. He also sees Akane, who is preparing curry for them all, which surprises Yu as Mika brought her the ingredients. Dinner becomes ready after some time, and Yu sits with the other kids at the table to eat. The curry is an instant hit for the gang, but Yu looks concerned with the fact that Mika isn't there eating with them. Night falls and the children fall asleep, but Yu remains awake waiting for Mika. At some point during midnight, Mika returns and prepares to go to bed, but Yu gives him the same look of disgust again. Actually, Yu is concerned for his friend's health. After that, Mika sits to eat his portion of the curry, and Yu joins him for round 2. Mika then shows Yu a map of their surrounding places that he picked up from Lord Farid's mansion. He tells Yu that with the help of that map, they and their whole Heakoya family can escape the orphanage that very night, and be out of their misery. Yu, despite being the more flamboyant of the two, thinks this idea is very risky as they could easily be caught. However, Mika is very confident, and he actually moves ahead with the plan. They wake all the kids up, and are on their way to get out of the vampire-controlled area. They all are able to move through tunnels without being spotted by the guards. Slowly, the gang moves to the final stretch of their path that would lead them outside to the regular world. But the kids' hopes are shattered as out of nowhere emerges Lord Farid. He laughs at the helpless children who are about to meet their doom. Yu tries to attack the vampire noble, but he's too fast for him. Farid starts to massacre, not even sparing Akane. Mika and Yu helplessly see this unfold right in front of them. Suddenly, Mika throws himself in front of Farid to give Yu an opportunity to attack. He gets fatal wounds, but manages to give you a chance to shoot Farad right in the head, which he fortunately doesn't miss, and Mika continuously tells him to escape or else the reinforcements would get him, making the death of his friends go in vain. Yu cries, saying that they are the ones that he finally started considering his family, his own. But the situation makes him run for his life. Yu finally makes it outside, which looks cold and gloomy as hell. However, suddenly a person looking like a soldier arrives and says that he'd use Yu as a weapon against vampires. Without even asking the soldier's name, the broken Yu runs and hugs him, saying that he'd do whatever he's told if it would result in the eradication of the bloodthirsty freaks. After that, another time skip happens, and we are 4 years further into the future. Walking with a newfound confidence and body language, we see Yu, who's wearing the same uniform as the soldier did in the previous scene. Suddenly, Yu is ambushed by 2 beasts of the vampires. He is told to retreat and save his life by 2 other soldiers. But this bad version of Yu apparently knows Kung Fu and all other martial arts that possibly exist. He skillfully dodges the beast's attacks without any fear, and then takes out a sword of his own to attack the monsters, killing them with 1 hit. In the next scene, Yu is attending school, sitting in one of the classrooms as he attends a math lecture. Apparently, Yu also hates classes, giving a very relatable feeling. He messes around with his professor while a girl sitting behind him attempts to flirt weirdly. She writes on a paper that her name is Shinoa Hiragi, and that she is a part of the military surveillance team. Shinoa tells Yu to cooperate in the class and consider making friends. After that, Yu remembers the day that he escaped the orphanage and met that soldier. At this point, Yu had discovered that he had been lied to by the vampires, and that all of humanity didn't die because of the virus. The soldier told him that only 1/10 of humanity prevailed after the supposed apocalypse, but the remaining humans thrived, and were well on their way to bring things back to normal. All of these words hit the young Yuichiro like a truck as he wondered who the soldier was. This is when the soldier introduced himself as the lieutenant colonel of the Japanese Imperial Demon Army, named Ikanos Guren. Guren then offered Yu to join him, and he'd equip Yu with everything he needs to defeat the vampires. The scene shifts back to the present, where Shinoa tries to do more small talk with Yu at the end of the lecture. She casually mentions all of Yu's traumas, that he couldn't make friends because his family was killed in front of him, and that he has a constant fear of losing loved ones. If anything, Shinoa could be hired to deal with patients whose card declined while paying for therapy. Hearing all this enrages Yu, and she tells Shinoa to quit babbling bull. He also screams at her to go and tell Guren to include him in the vampire extermination unit that he's dying to be a part of. Shinoa then hands Yu a letter from Guren, getting him excited that he's probably made it. However, Guren has roasted the out of Yu, writing that he wouldn't be included in the army until he remains a friendless virgin. This Imperial Demon Army is straight up savage. Yu curses them both and leaves the classroom in frustration. However, Shinoa keeps following Yu throughout the day, annoying the poor guy even more. He argues with her near the lockers when suddenly they see a kid being bullied by 3 douchebags. At first, Yu seems uninterested in helping him, but moments later he sees a reflection of his own former self in the boy. So Yu confronts the bullies, but Shinoa informs him right at that moment that his suspension from the army would be extended if he beats any civilians. Hence, our fiery boy gets punched in the face. After that, Yu and Shinoa take the bullied kid along, and he continuously apologizes to Yu as they walk down the hallway. Yu seems curious to know why this kid named Yoichi became a target. Yoichi then enlightens the wannabe vampire killer that he wasn't really being bullied. The bully's name is Yamanaka, and Yoichi wanted a favor from him, which angered him. Yamanaka has apparently been promised a spot in the vampire extermination unit named Moon Demon Company, so Yoichi wanted to talk Yamanaka into getting him a spot as well. Yu gets shocked to hear this, and then he curses Guren even more for promising others the spot that he's literally starving for. Yoichi then tells them that there is a particular reason why he wants to fight the vampires. He has to avenge his sister, who lost her life to a vampire trying to save her little brother. Shinoa and Yu go silent for a moment as they hear this, but then Yu tells Yoichi to not join the army as it is very dangerous, and it's not something his dead sister would want. Didn't know Yu could speak to the dead. Anyways, Yoichi stands and thinks about their conversation, but suddenly a big explosion is heard. There is chaos in the whole area, as there is an announcement being made that a vampire has entered the biology center. Shinoa immediately takes the lead, and says that they should evacuate the area, and contact the Moon Demon Company for help. However, our desperate stubborn Yuichiro announces that he'd go and face the vampire alone, as there wouldn't be a better opportunity to impress Guren. Hence, Yu pushes people around in the crowd and gets back to the locker to take out his sword. Yu wastes no time and advances to attack the vampire, but the vampire has some fire moves as she easily dodges the initial attacks. However, Yu manages to drive her away from the girl by cutting off the vampire's left arm. After that, Yu tells Yamanaka to take the girl who got attacked and run out of there. Yamanaka, on the other hand, looks like he just shit his pants as he's frozen in one position. He then spills the beans that his army position was all a lie to get some clout at school. Yu's fight continues as the vampire gets near the poor girl again. This time, she's stopped by a brave intervention from Yoichi that impresses Yu. Yu then pushes the vampire towards the window and crashes it to fall along with the vampire in the school's garden. At this point, the vampire has an upper hand on Yu. She is about to suck the life out of him. But suddenly a sword pierces and passes through the vampire's body. It belongs to none other Guren. The lieutenant defeats the vampire in one attack. He then calls Yu a fool for entering such a fight on his own, but also mentions that he did better than what Guren expected. However, Guren still goes on about the friend requirement, which irritates Yu like nothing else. He shouts at Guren that he has already proved he could face a vampire by himself. Just then, Yoichi arrives at the scene and jumps on Yu in joy as he sees that he's okay. Guren is surprised to see that the loser Yu has indeed made a friend who cares about him. Shinoa then reminds Guren of his promise that he must now fulfill. Yu then passes out from exhaustion and has a vision of Mika and his other friends from the past. They tell Yu to care for his new friends and be there for them as their comrade. They leave after saying this, and Yu panics while trying to make them stay somehow. The sad vision ends as Yu wakes up anxiously to find himself on the hospital bed. There, he sees Shinoa and Yoichi, who are delighted to see him gain consciousness. Shinoa then gives him the news he's been dying to hear, that he's now part of the Moon Demon Company and their vampire extermination unit. Yoichi has also been added due to his display of bravery while trying to save others. At this point, the three musketeers join fists for the first time as proper comrades. The next day, Yu meets the girl he saved from the vampire after school. This is the first time my man has experienced any female attention. The girl blushes and tells Yu that she likes him, followed by handing over a love letter to him and shyly running away. She has no idea that Yu has been so deprived. At this point, he doesn't even have any idea of how to respond to such shit. Then out of nowhere, Shinoa comes out and teases Yu for all the girls he's rizzing up by his heroic acts. But even she knows that Yu doesn't know about dating and would fumble this chance indefinitely. She then tells Yu that staying virgin for so long is not very healthy. This is why Guren also encourages building relationships with the Imperial Army. At this point, Shinoa should consider providing Yu some experience herself. She talks about how important it is for all of the remaining humankind to actively reproduce so that humans regain their numbers. Feeling that the conversation could go to unwanted places, Yu suddenly changes the topic and asks Shinoa why he still has to attend school despite being part of the vampire extermination unit. She replies that only Guren would be able to answer this, but Yu says that he's never available to talk. After that, Shinoa assures him that his training for the unit has already begun. She also says that she knows what Yu truly wants, after which she flips a key which turns into a freaking demon. Shinoa calls it Shikomadauji, the demon that is under contract with her. The black smoke demon then transforms into a scythe that is ablaze. This is when Yu understands that Shinoa possesses an infernal arm, a weapon containing vampire killing curse. He realizes that if he gets his hand on one too, he'd actually be able to kill vampires easily on his own. Shinoa then interrupts his fantasies by telling him to focus on teamwork, which is more important than any other weapon. But Yu goes further into his delulu as he challenges Shinoa to spar with him. He states the intention to take Shinoa's infernal arm if he wins. They begin to face off, and our delusional loser Yu is humbled within seconds. After that, Yu and Shinoa walk together on campus talking about the infernal arm. Yu is under the impression that fighting off vampires must be a walk in the park for Shinoa due to her infernal arm. But Shinoa enlightens Yu that it's never that easy, as the vampires are always equally equipped. Just then, Yoichi comes running towards Yu and looks very much out of breath. Following Yoichi is Yamanaka along with one of his sidekicks. Yu instantly thinks that Yoichi is being bullied again, but this time things are very different. The two boys are actually apologizing to Yoichi and acting like pipsqueaks. Yamanaka even requests Yoichi to keep them as his henchmen. Then Yu intervenes, telling Yamanaka that he has some nerve asking for Yoichi's help after all the bullying. Yamanaka helplessly says that he's stuck in a situation where only the military could help. He tells them that his friend Yuji entered the Forbidden Chamber and hasn't made it back. Yu and Yoichi are confused hearing this, but Shinoa seems to understand what Yamanaka is talking about. The jolly Shinoa then reveals her dark goth side for the first time as she confirms that these idiots broke into the Army's Class 1 restricted area. With a cold face, Shinoa tells Yamanaka that such an act is punished severely by the military. She asks Yamanaka to give up hope to find Yuji as he might even get a death penalty. Can't believe this is the same girl who was encouraging Yu to lose his virginity moments ago. Anyways, the traumatized kids leave, and then Yu asks Shinoa to tell him more about the Forbidden Chamber. Shinoa replies that it is a private training space for the members of the Vampire Extermination Unit. After that, she brings Yu and Yoichi to a door that leads to the underground shrine where the Extermination Unit trains. A demon is kept in this place, and the ones unaffected by its energy secure a spot in the training team. So Shinoa basically implies that this all is like a human experiment being done beneath the school. These wannabe freedom fighters are way more shady than they seem. Then Shinoa leads the boys down a stairway, and they finally reach a door which she says is the Forbidden Chamber that Yuji went through. The ever-reckless Yu enters the chamber without any consideration, thinking that handling demons is no biggie for someone like him who got molested by vampires. They enter an empty space where a lower floor is at view. Yuji can be seen standing at the lower floor in a space that has Illuminati logos. He's holding a scythe that Yu becomes very interested in, telling Shinoa that he'd get it, and make it his infernal arm. He runs towards Yuji, and Shinoa tells Yoichi to contact the Moon Demon for help as Yu is probably about to create a mess. He charges at Yuji with his sword, but a possessed Yuji fights back with his scythe. Suddenly, Shinoa interferes in an attempt to stop Yu. She tells him that his heart is still very prone to getting possessed, which is why Guren hasn't given him an infernal arm yet. But the coke has really gotten Yu, and he's hell-bent on proving that he could defeat the possessed kid. He goes at it once again, successfully dodging an attack from Yuji, and even managing to take off his scythe. However, Yu suddenly starts to hallucinate as he sees his lost Heiakoya family in front of him. He could see Akane, Mika, and all the other kids who are literally telling him that they died years ago, and Yu needs to avenge them. After that, Yu feels Mika whispering in his ear that all he must care about is revenge. However, Yu tries to snap out of it by confronting this imaginary Mika. He grabs his neck and tells him that the real Mika would never want Yu to be consumed with the obsession of revenge. He questions who this guy really is and why he is pretending to be Mika. After this, the hallucination starts to dissipate, and Yu wakes up after a few moments. He gets up from the ground and asks Shinoa what the F has been going on. She replies that Yu was being fed hallucinations by Yuji's demon, but he has successfully exorcised it without even using a contract spell. Not gonna lie, the wannabe's claims are backed by some serious skills. After that, Yu becomes very excited that Guren would probably notice him now since he defeated an actual demon. Shinoa confirms the fact that he just proved to be useful for the first time, and shall come to the unit for training from the next day. The scene shifts to a bizarre place where for some weird reason, the vampire noble Lord Farid who was shot by Yu is seen talking to a person about finally being able to find Heiakoya Yuichiro. And the mother of all plot twists arrives, as this person is none other than Heiakoya Mikela, Yu's long-lost brother from another mother. For context, on the other side of the world, a monster is wreaking havoc on the ruined city, while the remaining humans flee for safety. Meanwhile, Mika, now a vampire, moves toward the monster. With magical ropes binding his hand, he slashes at the creature with his sword, instantly killing it. As the humans find safety, a group of vampires appears, trying to deceive humans again, offering protection in exchange for fulfilling their bloodlust. A little girl approaches Mika. As Mika looks at her, memories from a few years ago come flooding back. After Yu escaped from Lord Farid's castle, a few vampires arrived on the scene. One of them tried to kill Mika, but Queen Krull appeared inside the castle, claiming Mika for herself. When Farid awoke, she accused him of letting Yu escape and threatened to destroy his empire. As Mika was on the verge of passing out, Queen Krull decided to turn him into one of her own. She kissed him with her blood, transforming him into a vampire. The next day at school, a random guy bumps into you and punches him in the face, calling him ugly and disgusting. That evening, when Yoichi asks if he got hit by a bus, Yu says he ran his face into a telegraph pole. Later, when they run into Shinoa, she asks if he got into another fight, but he tells her it was just a mosquito bite. But Shinoa asks him to stop lying, and leads them to their new training space. When they arrive, they find a few students in the classroom, and realize that Guren is their teacher. As Guren starts to introduce them, he calls Yoichi a dumb and Yu a wuss. Determined to prove himself, Yu tells the class he's the best fighter in the world, and doesn't care about them. He calls them losers, saying they should run home to their moms. Guren, unimpressed, punches him in the head for his dumb speech and tells him to sit down. Yu finds his seat already taken, and as he threatens to fight the guy, they realize they had crossed paths earlier. They start throwing punches, but Guren kicks them into the door, breaking up the fight. The next day, a new instructor announces that the students must pair up for a test to prove their teamwork skills. When Shinoa teams up with Yoichi, Yu decides to pair with his rival, Kimazuki. With no other students available, they reluctantly bind themselves together. As puppet monsters begin to appear, Shinoa and Yoichi dodge an attack. Yu thinks the monsters will be easy to defeat, and Kimazuki suggests they take them out immediately. But as they rush off, they bump into each other and realize they are still bound together. The puppets attack again but suddenly freeze when the instructor informs them that Kimazuki's sister is sick in the hospital. Kimazuki, however, dismisses it as a waste of time and urges everyone to continue with their training. Yu, thinking he has lost his mind, tells Kimazuki to stop the training immediately. But when Kimazuki insists on continuing, Yu knocks some sense into him and reminds him to take care of his sister, as she is his only family. That evening at the hospital, the doctor informs Kimazuki that his sister is lucky to be alive since the virus had started to take over. Despite this, Kimazuki remains hopeful, vowing to take her to a better hospital after joining the Moon Demon Company. Later that night, when Kimazuki begins to doubt his chances of making it into the army, Yu encourages him to believe, and reassures him that they will figure things out together. With a renewed sense of determination, they decide to make peace and focus on Kimazuki's goal of joining the company. The next night, as Guren leaves a meeting, Yu tries to kick him, but Guren catches his leg and shoves him away. When Yu demands his own infernal arm to hunt vampires, Guren finally agrees to give him a contract. Excited, Yu vows to slay all the vampires, but Guren knocks him down for trying to attack him earlier. Later, when Yu arrives at the facility, he runs into Shinoa, who tells him that Guren has approved his request for a demon weapon. Suspicious, Yu thinks they are tricking him, but Shinoa assures him that Guren always keeps his word. The next day in class, the instructor starts handing out exam results, explaining that the students' scores will determine their rank when they receive their special weapons. Yu, realizing he has failed miserably, tries to hide his result. Shinoa quickly snatches it away, and he chases her across the classroom, desperate to get it back. Unfortunately, the result ends up with a group of students who soon discover that he truly is a disgraceful failure. He grabs it quickly and tells Shinoa to mind her own business, claiming all he needs to become a great hero is a sword. As he starts arguing with Kimazuki about his score, Guren walks into the classroom. Noticing him, Yu demands the weapon he was promised, but Kimazuki shoves him aside, insisting on getting his own. Guren, however, believes they aren't ready to control the demon, and suggests they deal with their anger first. Despite this, Yu and Kimazuki argue again, silencing each other with a punch. Guren then asks if anyone in the class can resist the demon's temptation, and the instructor mentions that Yoichi is doing the best. Wanting to see for himself, Guren draws his sword, causing thick shadows to surround him. As he plunges the blade into the floor, the shadows spread throughout the classroom, covering the walls as the students start passing out. When Guren notices that Yoichi remains unaffected, he sheaths his sword, making the shadows disappear instantly. With only a few students still standing, Guren tells them they're allowed to form a contract with a demon. As they head down the steps, the instructor remarks that Yoichi is too soft and weak to control a demon. Guren, however, says Yoichi is useless anyway, and taming a demon is his best chance to survive. When they reach the underground chamber, Guren explains that the world's most powerful weapons are hidden there, each with its own demon. He warns them that if they can't defeat the demons, the creatures will take control of their bodies and destroy them instantly. Determined to prove his strength, Yu draws a sword, and a radiant light envelops him as a demon materialized before his eyes. She claims she can manipulate his mind and make him see whatever she wishes. Unfazed, Yu defiantly tells her to go to hell and demands control over her powers. When she questions his reason for wanting them, he responds with fierce resolve that he plans to avenge Mika's death. Seeing an opportunity to exploit his anger, the demon urges him to submit to her completely, promising to gain full control over his mind. As the demon disappears, Yu finds himself surrounded by his friends, who accuse him of abandoning them. They pressure him to surrender to the demon, assuring him that it will grant him limitless power. But Yu, recognizing their deceit, refuses to be fooled. He shouts that he needs her powers, not for himself, but to protect his friends. Suddenly, he is thrust back into the spirit realm, where the demon reappears. With a sly smile, she admits that she is starting to like him, and agrees to grant him her powers on the condition that he remains steadfast in his mission to destroy vampires. She warns Yu that if he ever hesitates to slay a vampire, she will take control of his body. This is exactly what Yu wants to hear, so he agrees without a second thought. She introduces herself as Asuramaru, and tells him to call on her whenever he needs her powers. As she steps out from the shadows, she announces that their contract is now sealed. Yu then finds himself back in the real world. Feeling triumphant, he starts boasting about his victory over the demon, only to find out that Kimazuki has already defeated his own demon before him. Meanwhile, Yoichi is still trapped in his dream, lying unconscious. The demon, appearing as his sister, taunts him, saying he is too weak and useless to control her powers. Yoichi tries to defend himself, saying he wants to avenge her death, but she dismisses him, calling him foolish and unworthy of the task. With a cold smile, she plunges her hand into his chest, and vows to take up his revenge herself. At that moment, Yoichi awakens, and a powerful gust of wind suddenly shatters the statue in front of him. Gurren explains to Yu and Kimazuki that Yoichi has failed to control his demon, and now that it has taken over his body, they must eliminate him without delay. As he finishes speaking, Yoichi fires an arrow at them, but Gurren remains unharmed. Yoichi then leaps onto a nearby statue and continues his attack, launching more arrows at Yu and Kimazuki. The air is filled with dust, but Yu manages to dodge another incoming arrow. With Yoichi's relentless attacks, Kimazuki draws his twin blades, and Yu grips his sword, preparing for a counterattack. As they rush forward, Yu suddenly appears behind Yoichi, poised to strike him down. Instead of delivering a lethal blow, he clashes his sword against Yoichi's, knocking it aside in the hope of severing the demon's hold over him. However, Gurren quickly informs him that the demon resides within Yoichi's body itself. Taking advantage of Yu's momentary distraction, Yoichi pulls him down. Just as Kimazuki prepares to end the battle, Yu yells at him to stop, insisting that there must be another way to bring Yoichi back to his senses. Yu starts yelling at Yoichi, urging him to take control of his own body, but Yoichi points his arrow right at Yu. To show his courage, Yu tosses his sword aside, but Shinoa and Kimazuki rush in to shield him. Despite their efforts, Yoichi shoots his arrow, but it misses. In that moment, he regains his senses and runs towards Yu. Gurren, however, kicks Yu for discarding his weapon and calls Yoichi a useless, disgusting weakling, telling him to stop acting that way. When Yu comes to, Gurren tells him to forget about his old friends, and to see Kimazuki and Yoichi as his new family. As Gurren turns to leave, he informs them that they will be sent to the front lines of the war, as the vampires are close to breaking through a nearby city. The following day, while traveling on a train, Yu turns to Shinoa and asks why she keeps following him around like an overly attached freak. Shinoa explains that she's his guide, assigned to keep an eye on him. However, Yu thinks she doesn't fully grasp her own explanation, and tells her that he's just eager to get to the part where they start slaying vampires. When they reach their destination, they step off the train and enter a facility overlooking a ruined city. From above, they spot Gurren standing with a girl, and they quickly make their way down to join them. There, they also find Yoichi and Kimazuki waiting. The girl, Matsuba, is angrily shouting at Gurren, furious that Shinoa has been made the leader of their team. She believes that she should have been given the role instead. As soon as she notices Shinoa, her fury intensifies, and she charges at her. Shinoa, unfazed, calls her a grumpy, useless little kid, which only fuels Matsuba's anger. Enraged, Matsuba summons her blade, ready to strike. In response, Shinoa calls forth her scythe, and the two clash weapons fiercely. Just as the tension peaks, Gurren steps in, knocking their weapons aside and grabbing both of them. He warns them that if they keep behaving like foolish children, he will lock them up in solitary confinement. They apologize and vow to be on their best behavior. After a few minutes, Gurren announces that he will be going in a different direction. He introduces Mitsuba to the team, calling her their new teammate. Gurren explains that the demon army always scouts vampire territories with a group of 5 soldiers, because it's the only way to keep everyone safe. He tells them to work together as a team, stressing that it's the only way they'll make it through their battles alive. Despite this, Yu, being the smart, believes he doesn't need anyone's support, and tells Shinoa that he plans to attack the first vampire he sees. When Mitsuba tries to kick him, Yu grabs her foot and asks if she's lost her mind. But she replies that she's just testing his reflexes to make sure he isn't a useless fighter. Gurren then briefs the team on their mission, which is to find a vampire settlement and rescue the humans who are being used as food. The team sets out, and when they reach the vampire territory, Mitsuba starts ranting about monsters and vampires, shouting for everyone to stay alert so they won't get crushed by the enemies. As they journey deeper into the territory, a young girl suddenly dashes away, fleeing from a terrifying monster. Yu, driven by a desire to help, prepares to rescue her, but Mitsuba quickly stops him, warning that it's a trap laid by the vampires. However, when the creature brutally knocks the girl aside, Yu becomes frustrated, thinking Mitsuba is out of her mind, and he angrily tells the team to forget about it. Mitsuba grabs him, insisting that his actions could put everyone in danger. The girl, now trapped at the edge of a cliff, is desperately trying to escape as the monster moves in, ready to push her over. Ignoring Mitsuba's warnings, Yu shouts at her to mind her own business and dashes off to help. Determined to stop him, Mitsuba chases after Yu. Just as the monster is about to shove the girl off the edge, the bus she was standing near suddenly disappears, leaving her vulnerable to its deadly strike. Yu intervenes, slashing at its claws and blocking another vicious attack. He then yells at the girl to run for her life. Mitsuba, now fully committed, charges at the creature and slices off its claws. Before they can catch their breath, 3 vampires appear, flying straight towards them. Mitsuba, sensing the danger, explains to Yu that vampires often use humans as bait to lure the army into a trap, urging him to keep his distance and stay out of their reach. In an instant, a vampire slams into Yu's sword, launching an attack, quickly joined by another. Yu defends himself, fending them off, but not before one manages to slice across his face. As they charge at him again, Yu calls forth Osarimaru, releasing thick clouds of smoke from his sword. Strange markings start to appear all over his body. Just as a monster rushes towards him, Kimizuki leaps in front and slashes it twice, while Yoichi fires arrows at its tail. Mitsuba jumps high into the air and finishes the creature with her blade. When the vampires realize that Yu and his team are part of the extermination unit, they decide to call for reinforcements. But before they can, Yu delivers a powerful slash, determined to prevent them from escaping. Despite his resolve, Shinoa tells him they need to fall back because they've gone too far into enemy territory. Reluctantly, Yu agrees and watches as the vampires disappear. Back at the facility, Mitsuba explodes at Yu, shouting that he put everyone's lives in danger. Yu apologizes for leaving the group, but doesn't regret rescuing the girl. As she steps forward, the girl thanks him for saving her. Mitsuba reassures the girl, telling her not to be afraid, and that the army will keep her safe. The next day, the girl informs them that the vampire settlement is located inside an old train station. After a few hours of planning, the team sets off. As they near their destination, Mitsuba warns everyone that if they're outnumbered by vampires, they'll need to retreat. But Yu dismisses her plan, boldly stating that he'd rather fight to the very end. When the group arrives at the station, Mitsuba warns everyone to stay on guard against the vampires' attacks and scolds Yu, telling him to stop acting foolishly. As they step inside, they come across several children who look weak and ill from losing too much blood. Moving through the station's tunnel, searching for the vampires, Kimizuki starts wondering why the kids don't run away, especially since the vampires aren't around. Mitsuba explains that the kids are too scared to leave because they're afraid of being devoured by the monsters outside. The vampires had promised to protect them from that threat. As the team reaches an abandoned floor, they spot a vampire walking across it. Without hesitation, Mitsuba calls forth her weapon and orders the team to eliminate him. Yu quickly dashes forward, swinging his sword, and strikes the vampire with a swift blow. The moment he withdraws his blade, the vampire disappears in an instant. Furious at you for acting so recklessly, Mitsuba yells at him and tries to hit him. However, Yu catches her hand, telling her he had been waiting for her command before making his move. Mitsuba stares in shock, but suddenly, he pulls her aside just in time to block the sword of a new vampire before swiftly kicking him away. As the two opponents rush toward each other, Yu swiftly cuts the vampire down with a single, clean slash. Not long after, the team moves to another section of the station, where they witness more vampires approaching. Weapons raised and ready for battle, the team stands their ground, prepared for the vampire's attack. However, in a sudden move, 3 more vampires crash through the glass, grabbing Mitsuba. She manages to slip free, but the moment she realizes they've been misled about the vampires, the leader reveals they had threatened to harm her family if she shared the truth. With the team vastly outnumbered, Mitsuba urges them to run, but Yu, unshaken, declares he'll fight until his very last breath. Charging ahead with determination, he begins clashing swords with one vampire, while Yoichi's well-aimed arrow pierces through another. Kimazuki is locked in his own battle as Yu continues pushing through, enduring slashes while clashing with more enemies. In a stroke of luck, he manages to block an oncoming strike and kick another vampire. With his eyes on the leader, Yu charges forward, delivering a decisive blow that splits the leader with a single strike, freeing Mitsuba from danger. The team gathers together, ready for another intense battle. That evening, they successfully rescue all the children and take them to a new camp. As soon as the girl sees Yu, she rushes over to him, apologizing for deceiving the team. But Yu reassures her, telling her not to feel upset. He explains that she made the right choice by protecting her family. After he waves her off, Mitsuba appears behind him. She tries to thank him for saving her, but with her usual pride, she turns and walks away without saying much. The next morning, Kimazuki is working on a Hummer H2, and once he's done, Yu eagerly tells him he wants to take it for a test drive. But Kimazuki brushes him off, reminding him that he doesn't even know how to drive. Later, while the team is eating breakfast, the dumbass gets behind the wheel anyway, and the idiot crashes straight into a light pole, causing some drama. A few hours pass, and the team sets off, driving towards their next destination. As they get closer, a terrible sound fills the air from the direction of their goal. Mitsuba quickly informs the team that the noise is coming from where they're headed, and warns them to stay alert for possible enemy attacks. As they move closer to their destination, they spot a vampire standing in their path. When Yu realizes that this vampire is of high rank, he quickly tells Kimazuki to take him down. However, as they leap out of the vehicle, the vampire uses his immense strength to stop it, and hurls it towards them, causing it to explode into fragments. Yoichi fires arrows at the vampire, but the vampire easily deflects them, and sends a powerful gust of wind their way. Shinoa manages to block the wind, and instructs the team to hold their positions. Just then, the vampire swiftly appears behind her, ready to strike, but Yu intervenes, knocking his sword aside, forcing the vampire to retreat a few steps. Seeing a chance, the team prepares to engage the vampire, but suddenly, 2 more vampires descend from the sky. Haru suggests they flee, but Shinoa warns him that they would be killed if they tried. She explains that their best option is to give it their all in battle, and hope they survive. One of the new vampires then informs the lead vampire that Lord Farid is waiting for him on the front lines. Reluctantly, the lead vampire sheaths his sword, and tells the team that he will finish them the next time they meet. As Yu feels a hand smack his back, he quickly realizes the vampire is already behind him. However, instead of attacking, the vampire simply wishes him goodbye, and vanishes in a swift movement. Shinoa, overwhelmed with relief by how things ended, drops to her knees, grateful they are still alive. But Yu, instead of feeling relief, is filled with anger. He believes the vampire was just playing with them, which frustrates him. He wishes he could match the vampire's abilities, and feels it's unfair that these high-ranking vampires are so much stronger than him. Shinoa then advises Yu to learn magical curses if he truly wants to stand on equal footing with them. Yet, she warns that doing so would mean he wouldn't rely on the team's support, which would leave them vulnerable to enemy attacks. She reminds him of his importance to the group and sincerely thanks him for saving her life. Inside the facility, soldiers fire arrows at helicopters, causing them to explode and crash. As they continue shooting, the helicopters try to dodge, but are hit and explode mid-air. Just when the soldiers believe they've won, a plane approaches, crashes into the facility, and explodes, making the walls collapse. Through the opening, 2 vampires step out, proud of their success, followed by more vampires rushing into the facility. Meanwhile, on the east side, the team arrives and realizes the facility is under attack. An aircraft fires a missile at them, and they quickly dive to the ground, taking cover behind a wall. As another aircraft opens fire, they sprint to hide behind a different wall. Vampires begin descending from the aircraft, and while the soldiers fight them off, the team charges out with their weapons. Mitsuba leaps high with her blade, taking down 2 vampires, while Yu blocks and strikes, and Shinoa cuts down another vampire. An aircraft then starts firing at her, but she blocks it and tells Yoichi to take it down. As Yoichi tries to shoot an arrow, a vampire leaps in front of him. Shinoa quickly slices the vampire, giving Yoichi the chance to release his arrow, which hits the helicopter and makes it explode. Yu and Kimazuki rush forward, cutting down more vampires with their swords. Once the battle ends, the corporal appears and thanks them for their help. As they walk through the camp, he informs them that the west side of the facility has been breached, and asks them to join the others to fight off the vampires. Meanwhile, on the east side, Gurren watches as the vampires drain fallen soldiers, and notices Mika standing with Lord Ferret. Just then, a woman appears behind Gurren, and asks him to join the war. While she speaks, a vampire charges at her, but a girl punches him, making him disappear with a single hit. This girl is Mido, a high-ranking member of the demon army. Soon, the rest of the team arrives, and Gurren orders them to take out Lord Ferret. As Lord Ferret approaches the facility, he asks Mika if he'd eliminate you if they come across on the battlefield. But Mika leaps to the ground, ignoring the question, and starts to walk away. 4 years earlier, when Mika was first turned into a vampire, he refused to drink from any human, choosing not to complete his transformation. When Queen Krull warned him that he would die in a few days, he replied that he would rather die than live as a monster. Despite this, she cut herself and let her blood flow into a cup. When she offered it to him, he threw it away. However, as she began to walk away, he grabbed her hand and started drinking her blood like a good boy. Now, as the team heads toward their next destination, Shinoa warns the group that they stand no chance of surviving on the front lines of the war, as the powerful vampires could wipe them out in an instant. When Kimazuki asks if there's a way to boost their abilities, Shinoa shows them some performance-enhancing coke, explaining that these will help them fully tap into the power of their demons. Yu asks if the pills will make him as strong as the high-ranked vampires. Shinoa tells him that 1 pill will double his strength, while 2 will triple it. Surprised by this, Yu wonders how strong he'd become if he took 10 pills, which is something I also wonder daily. Shinoa quickly warns him that his organs would burst out of his body like chewing gum, and even 2 pills could send him into severe shock. Mitsuba adds that the pills only work for 15 minutes, and after that, they'd be easy prey for the vampires. When Shinoa hands over the pills, Yu asks why she hadn't given them earlier when they encountered the high-ranked vampire. Shinoa tells him they would have been defeated right away since the pills take 10 seconds to kick in. Suddenly, a missile strikes the ground, and the truck loses balance, flipping over and throwing the team out. As a helicopter circles overhead, the team starts running, dodging the constant gunfire. When the helicopter comes around again, Yu notices the corporal is unconscious, so he rushes to drag him to safety while Shinoa helps. As more shots rain down from the helicopter, Mitsuba and Kimazuki block them with their weapons. Yoichi fires an arrow at the aircraft, but it responds by launching missiles. 1 missile hits the truck, triggering a massive explosion that shakes the ground and sends the team tumbling into an underground area. As Yu and Shinoa look around, they find themselves in an abandoned subway. Shinoa informs Yu that there is an army base nearby, and they can take the corporal there for treatment. However, when they realize the rest of their team is trapped on the other side of the rubble, Yu tells them to head toward the defense line while they take the corporal to safety. Yu carries him on his back, and they start walking down the tunnel. Meanwhile, on the east side, Gurren and Mika run into each other. Gurren prepares for a fight, but Lord Ferret suddenly appears behind Mika with an army of vampires. In response, Gurren summons his own army for backup, and begins drawing power from his sword. At the same time, Yu and Shinoa arrive at the army base and admit the corporal for treatment. Just as they are about to leave, Shinoa tells Yu that Gurren is waiting for them on the east side of the district to help defend against the vampires. She suggests they meet up with the rest of the team before moving to the east side. Just then, they come across a soldier telling his superior that vampires are destroying a nearby district and have almost broken through the defense line. When Yu learns that only his friends are fighting the vampires there, he tells the superior he'll handle the situation. As he starts to leave, Shinoa tells him they're out of time and should help Gurren in his district instead, but Yu ignores her and keeps walking. Soon, he begins to run and Shinoa follows after him. Meanwhile, in the district, Mitsuba slashes through a vampire while Yoichi fires an arrow at another. One vampire tries to sneak up on him, but Yoichi dodges and Kimazuki blocks the attack, then stabs the vampire in the heart. Realizing they're outnumbered, they brace for the vampire's assault. As Kimazuki duels one vampire, another attempts to strike him, but Yu jumps in to protect him, and Shinoa swiftly cuts down the attacker. With the vampires gone, Yu wonders where the rest of the vampire army is hiding. Kimazuki then tells him that they have already wiped them all out. When Kim asks Yu why they showed up at the district instead of the defense line, Yu explains that he came to save them after hearing they were in trouble. Meanwhile, on the east side, Gurren swings his sword, cutting through the vampires in front of him as both sides engage in battle. When a vampire charges at Gurren, he blocks the attack and steps back into Yuri. Realizing they can't win like this, Yuri suggests that Gurren take down Lord Farid to gain the upper hand. At the same time, Lord Farid orders Mika to defeat him. As Gurren charges toward them, Mika rises to the challenge and summons the power of his sword. In the heat of battle, Gurren leaps toward Mika, and they clash swords before jumping apart. With a swift move, Gurren places a spell on Mika's head, commanding it to explode. But when the dust settles, Mika lands on the ground, untouched by the attack. The demon army catches him in their trap, and at Gurren's command, Yuri pulls her strings, aiming to trap Mika. However, Mika jumps away just in time, prompting Mato to cast a powerful cloud of smoke toward him. As Mika dodges it and lands, he suddenly realizes Gurren is right behind him. Just as Gurren attempts to finish him off, Lord Farid steps in, blocking Gurren's blade, and delivering a strong punch that sends Gurren stumbling through several rebels before he finally comes to a stop. When Farid suggests they get rid of Gurren, Mika insists that he doesn't need any help, and plans to fight the battle on his own. Meanwhile, Gurren finds he has only a few seconds left before the effects of the pill wear off. When he tries to take another pill, Mato warns him that it will lead to his doom. Gurren, however, believes they are all destined to die anyway and hopes to take some high-ranking vampires down with him. As Mika flashes toward him, Gurren promises to end him, but they both leap away from each other. Moments later, Mika lunges again, pushing Gurren toward the rubble and preparing to strike him down. Just then, Yu and the team appear in the distance, sprinting toward them. At Chino's signal, they each swallow a pill, hoping to rescue Gurren and retreat from the chaos of battle. As Mika impales Gurren, Yu rushes toward him. But when Mika realizes it's Yu, he freezes in shock, which gives Yu the opportunity to give him a deep stab in the heart. As they lock eyes in shock, Gurren urges Yu to activate the curse on his sword and finish off Mika. But Yu, too shaken to act, hesitates, and Gurren steps in to try and end Mika himself. Mika leaps into the air and falls across the ground. As Yu stumbles over his words, Gurren punches him in the face, demanding why he couldn't kill Mika. Yu, still in a daze, watches as Gurren starts coughing from his wounds. Yu tries to help, but Gurren shoves him aside, yelling for him to snap out of his foolish, worthless dreams. When the team catches up, Mitsuba asks why Yu didn't finish the vampire. Yu explains that the vampire is his old friend Mika, who he thought had died long ago. As Yu and Mika slowly approach each other, overwhelmed by the moment, Lord Farid tells Mika that the humans are controlling Yu, hoping to rescue him. Mika tells Farid that he plans to take Yu far away from the district. But when Farid threatens to turn Yu into a vampire, Mika becomes furious and warns him that he'll take him down if he tries. Farid agrees, but says he'll go after Yu's team instead. As magical ropes tie Mika's hands, power surges through his sword, and a new vampire, Crowley, approaches them. The team immediately recognizes him as the high-ranking vampire they faced earlier, and feels an overwhelming fear, realizing they can't defeat him. Gurren yells for the team to retreat, but Yu hesitates, not wanting to leave Mika behind. Despite his reluctance, the team convinces Yu to run with them, and they begin to flee. However, Farid rushes ahead and blocks their path, declaring that they're not allowed to leave. As he swiftly moves behind Yu, Yu draws his sword and attacks wildly, slashing at him in a blind fury, desperate to avenge his fallen friends. Gurren quickly joins him. As Farid keeps stepping back, Gurren charges at him, but Farid dodges the attack and ends up behind him, kicking him into a pole. Mido rushes to help, but another vampire kicks Yuri aside and speeds ahead, sending a gust of wind that cuts her face. Meanwhile, the team starts battling more vampires. Yoichi finishes one with an arrow, barely avoiding a second vampire. As he tries to aim again, fear freezes him, but Kimazuki shoves him out of the way and blocks the vampire's strike before taking it down. Farid pins Gurren against the wall, and Yu rushes to save him, nearly hitting Gurren with his own sword. Farid reappears behind Yu and threatens to devour him, but Mika slices off his arm, forcing Farid to retreat and reclaim his limb. Mika moves toward Yu, but Yu sits down, scared of him. Mika urges him to escape, but Yu questions why he's with the vampire who killed their friends. Mika doesn't answer his question. Instead, he lifts him like a child and flies away from the scene. As they leap through the air, Yu demands to know why Mika has sided with the vampire. But Mika believes the humans are dangerous and wicked, telling Yu he should avoid them forever. As they keep jumping, Yu pushes Mika away, declaring he wants his freedom. When Mika moves toward Yu again, he warns that the humans plan to destroy the world, and offers to take him somewhere safe. However, Yu refuses, saying his team matters to him. Meanwhile, Crowley is about to finish off Shinoa, and as Yu rushes to save her, Mika stops him, insisting he must leave his team behind. Right in front of Yu, the vampires capture all his friends, but Mika holds onto his cloak, preventing him from helping them. When Yu breaks free and runs, Mika quickly catches him, and warns that the humans are only using him for his powers. In that moment, Yu sees the vampires start draining his friend's blood. Desperate to stop them, he throws Mika to the floor. But when he realizes it's already too late, he begins to scream in agony, tears streaming from his eyes. Inside his mind, Yu wonders if Asaramaru is trying to take control of him. Instead, she reveals that a monster inside him is trying to release its power. As they look up at the strange sky, mysterious trumpets echo across the world, and angels appear. Asaramaru tells Yu that the monster within him is about to break free, and suddenly, a powerful darkness bursts from Yu's back, spreading out like a giant tree branch as he screams in pain. Mika tries to bring Yu back to his senses, but Yu unleashes a slash that destroys the roof and wipes out everything around. Crowley approaches Yu, but barely avoids a huge blast that tears a massive hole in the ground. As he wonders how Yu got so strong, Crowley suddenly appears behind him, but manages to block the sword. Yu tackles him, dragging him across the ground before dodging his sword. Crowley charges at him, and their swords clash fiercely until he gets kicked away. Yu swings his sword, and a massive wall of darkness shoots into the sky, ripping apart the ground. When Shinoa wakes up, she sees that a huge crater has been carved into the earth from the destruction. Soon after, Yu appears, stumbling towards Shinoa like a mindless freak. In a desperate attempt to defend herself, she summons her weapon, but Yu knocks it aside as he chases her, ready to end her. Mika takes the hit for her, the sword drawing nearer to her. Gurren shouts for her to bring Mika back to his senses, so she rushes toward him, hugging him tightly and urging him to remember who he really is. As he screams like a wild man, he lets go of Mika and tries to take down Shinoa. However, the darkness flows back into him, and he passes out as his mind clears. At the same moment, Gurren tells Farid that Yu is just a distraction from their real plan. In the distance, a soldier points a gun at the vampires, and when he fires, 3 monsters erupt from the flames and crash to the ground. Farid thinks they are safe, but suddenly an army appears in front of them. The leader announces that they come from the Hiragi family, and that their goal is to capture all the vampires, putting an end to the bullshit drama of the vampires. A few days after the vampire facade, Shinoa enters a secret facility, but security informs her that she cannot enter the restricted area, and tells her to go right away. When she explains that she is from the extermination unit, they say that only chosen elite officers are the ones allowed. Curious about what the facility is for, she asks another guard, who tells her that it serves as a lab for experimenting on vampires. Wanting to see for herself, Shinoa reveals her crest, flexing that she belongs to the Hiragi family. And now the security has shit their pants, and they allow her through. As she walks through a gloomy passage, she finds some vampires locked up in cells. Soon, she reaches a large lab and sees scientists conducting strange experiments with vampire blood. Realizing that this might have been the reason the war got triggered, When she enters Gurren's office, she tells him that Yu has been unconscious since the battle, and wonders what is really in the pill she gave him. Gurren dodges her questions, and states firmly that for weak species like theirs to survive in this apocalyptic world, human experimentation is necessary, making himself look extremely suspicious. He goes on to remind her that many human lives were sacrificed to help her sister finish her research on the cursed gear. After this, he leans back in his chair and tells her to leave, not wanting to hear anything more from her. Just before she goes, he mentions that the drugs will take 5 days to wear off, so he should wake up soon. He adds that if she truly cares about Yu, she should be by his side when he regains consciousness in the hospital. Shinoa realizes that she may be developing the hots for him. Meanwhile, there's a flashback to the battle's aftermath, where Mika tries to reach out to Yu, but is held back by a frustrated Farid, who reveals that he has been toying with Mika the whole time, treating him like a child. Back at the castle, we discover that the vampires have detoxification pods that can eliminate curses. As Mika steps out of one such pod, he discovers that, even though he is still a vampire, he can cry like a human. In the changing room, the other vampires attempt to talk to Mika, but he continues to ignore them. To Mika's surprise, they share that the humans are exploring dangerous magic known as Seraph of the End, which is believed to have the ability to wipe out the entire world. Additionally, they disclose that the real reason the vampires attacked the humans was to capture this special magic. After that, Yu wakes up from his coma. Shinoa enters the room soon after, finding it amusing to see Yu cry. She then tells him what happened after he fainted. When Yu mentions that he cannot remember anything after the fight, she reveals that the vampires took Mika away after he fainted. For now, the only thing that matters to him is knowing that Mika is still alive. Yu then leans in close to Shinoa, gently touches her cheek, and moves her hair aside in sizzling fashion. He asks if she's feeling okay after her neck injury. An embarrassed and shy Shinoa assures him that she's fine. Just then, the rest of the squad comes in, interrupting their romance and starting to joke around. Yu chimes in, expressing how glad he is that they're all alive, and how grateful he feels to have such good friends. Later, as Yu and Mika gaze at the full moon from their respective locations, they both make a promise at the same time to save each other.